No species will ever forget the moment humanity's patience finally snapped. This recorded start, galactic date 47,293.6. I speak into my personal log, adjusting the quantum recorder as I gaze through the observation dome at the blue-green planet below. Professor Ralilak continuing documentation of species 7249 designational. Humans. A bitter laugh escapes my throat. How wrong we were. How catastrophically, monumentally wrong. The Council should have listened to my warnings about classifying them as a Level 2 civilization. But no one ever listens to the ethnoanthropologist. The ship's systems hum softly around me as I continue my observation. Earth hangs suspended in the void like a precious gem, deceptively peaceful from this distance. 10 years ago, I stood in this same spot, filled with excitement about first. Now I understand why the ancient texts speak of things better left undisturbed. Preliminary observation period lasted standard 50 cycles. I continue, my four hands moving swiftly across the control panel. The Council of Seven Galaxies believed they had identified all crucial aspects of human civilization. There is another harsh laugh, primitive, limited, harmless. The memory surfaces unbidden, Ambassador Talara striding into the council chamber, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with confidence. The humans will make excellent clients, she declared. Their planet's resources will serve the council well, and they'll be grateful for our guidance. I remember shifting uncomfortably in my seat, trying to voice my concerns. But Ambassador, my research indicates. Thank you, Professor Rolidak. She cut me off with a dismissive wave. We value your academic insights, but this is a matter for practical governance. The warning signs were there from the start. We should have noticed when our most sophisticated encryption was broken in mere days. Should have paid attention when our superior technology started being replicated and improved upon within weeks of diplomatic exchanges. But the Council was too busy congratulating themselves on finding another species to add to their collection, too preoccupied with calculating Earth's resource value to notice the steel beneath the human smiles. First contact day. That's when it all began to unravel. The Council decided to demonstrate their power, standard procedure for welcoming new client species. The gathering fleet appeared over every major human city simultaneously, 50,000 ships, a display of overwhelming force meant to ensure peaceful cooperation. I still remember the human response. No panic, no chaos. Just calm voices requesting the fleet's immediate withdrawal, as if they were asking party guests to leave at the end of the night. Ambassador Talara was positively gleeful at their naivety. She delivered the Council's terms with her usual flourish. Earth would be granted protection in exchange for resource rights and technological supervision. The humans would be guided to a proper place in galactic society. Their chief negotiator, a woman named Amanda Blackwood, listened politely to the entire presentation. Then she smiled, not the warm expression we documented in our cultural studies, but something else entirely, something that made my scales ripple with unease. That's a very generous offer, she said, voice dripping with something our translators identified as sarcasm. But we're going to decline. You have 1 hour to remove your ships from Earth's space. The council representatives actually laughed. My dear Talara practically purred, I don't think you understand. This isn't a request. The might of 50,000 ships will be reduced to 0 in 61 minutes. If they remain in their current positions, Blackwood interrupted. We've been peaceful because we choose to be. Don't make us choose differently. Looking back now, that was the moment. The precise instant when the council should have recognized their catastrophic miscalculation. But centuries of easy victories had made them arrogant. They thought they were dealing with primitives who needed to be taught their place. They didn't understand that humanity's patience was not infinite, that their politeness was not weakness, that their warmth could turn to fire. End record, I whisper, my voice heavy with the weight of history. The quantum recorder clicks off, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the view of Earth below. Tomorrow, I'll continue documenting how it all fell apart, how the Council's arrogance led to the greatest military and diplomatic catastrophe in galactic. But for now, I simply watch and remember. Remember the day we learned that some species are not meant to be conquered. Some peoples are not meant to be ruled. And humanity was never meant to kneel. The observation room feels colder today as I resume my recording. Record start galactic date 47-93.7. The Council's failure with first contact should have been the end. Instead, it was merely the beginning. I pull up the archived footage, watching as various species began their own attempts to gain Earth's favor. The Mercathi offered advanced propulsion technology. The Zentari promised biological immortality. The Drachnid Imperium suggested a military alliance. Each one came with hidden strings, with secret plans to manipulate and control. Each one left with what humans called a bloody nose. Admiral Jessica Porter. The name slips from my mouth with a mixture of respect and fear. She was the first to understand what we were really doing, the first to see through our supposedly benevolent offers. The holographic display shows her first appearance at the Galactic Assembly, tall for a human with silver-streaked black hair and eyes that seemed to pierce through diplomatic facades. She stood before the gathered representatives of 1,000 worlds, her white uniform pristine, her posture radiating quiet strength. "Let me be perfectly clear," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "Earth is not a prize to be won. We are not children to be guided, and we are rapidly losing patience with these transparent attempts to gain control of our world." The Mercathi representative, Lord Blackscale, rose to protest. "Admiral Porter, you misunderstand. We only wish to share the benefits of our advanced." "Your propulsion technology," Porter interrupted with a sharp smile, "the one with the hidden backdoor that would allow you to disable our ships at will. We found that within hours of examining the prototype. Just like we found the genetic kill switch in the Zentari's immortality treatment, and the loyalty programming buried in the Drachnid military protocols." I remember the shocked silence that filled the chamber. No one was supposed to be able to detect those safeguards. The most advanced species in the galaxy had spent centuries perfecting them. The human ability to innovate, to reverse engineer, to improve upon existing technology. We gravely underestimated it. I speak into my recorder. While we saw them as primitives to be guided, they were studying us, learning. The archived footage continues, showing the growing tension. Trade delegations arriving with manipulated contracts, spy ships poorly disguised as merchant vessels, corporate interests attempting to exploit loopholes in galactic law. Through it all, humanity's responses grew progressively less diplomatic. Admiral Porter's warnings became more direct. The human representative, Marcus Taylor, stopped attending council sessions entirely. "We thought they were being stubborn," I mutter, shaking my head at our blindness. "We never realized they were giving us every chance to back away." The quantum recorder captures my bitter laugh as I pull up footage from the Centauri incident. The Drachnid Imperium, frustrated by their failed manipulation attempts, decided to demonstrate their power by establishing an observation post in Earth's. Within minutes of crossing the boundary line humanity had established, the Drachnid fleet encountered something new, something that shouldn't have been possible. The human defense platforms, I narrate, watching the familiar scene unfold. Quantum-linked satellites that could fire through subspace, ignoring traditional shields. Technology that no Level 2 civilization should have been able to conceive, let alone construct. The Drachnid ships never even had time to raise their shields. 3 capital ships, pride of their fleet, reduced to drifting hulks by precision strikes from weapons they couldn't detect or counter. Admiral Porter's message to the Imperium was broadcast across all galactic frequencies. This was a warning shot. The next violation of our space will be considered an act of war. Earth's patience is not infinite. But the Council, in their infinite wisdom, saw the incident differently. They saw not the warning it represented, but proof that humanity was too dangerous to be left uncontrolled. We scheduled emergency sessions. I continue my record, drafted plans for containment, created task forces to study human weaknesses, and all the while humanity watched, waited, gave us chance after chance to change course. The final diplomatic meeting stands out in my memory with painful clarity. The council chamber packed with representatives from every major species, Ambassador Telara, now Supreme Counselor, delivering what she thought was an ultimatum. Earth will accept guidance from the galactic community, she declared, or Earth will be isolated from all galactic travel and trade. This is not a negotiation. Admiral Porter and Marcus Taylor exchanged a glance that made my scales prickle with warning. Then Taylor stepped forward, his expression almost pitying. "You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you?" he asked quietly. "Even now, you think you have the upper hand. Think you're in control?" He shook his head. "We've tried diplomacy, tried patience, tried to show you that we can be valuable allies if you just treat us as equals." He turned to leave, then paused at the chamber doors. "You should know we've already developed our own FTL drives, better ones. We don't need your trade routes, we don't need your technology, and if you try to isolate us, you'll quickly learn that we don't need your permission to travel the stars." The council erupted in outrage, but I barely heard them. I was watching Admiral Porter, who hadn't moved or spoken. She stood perfectly still, watching the chaos with eyes that had seen enough. As I end today's recording, I can't help but wish we had understood then what those eyes were telling us. That human patience was reaching its end, that their willingness to endure our manipulations was running out. But we didn't understand, and what came next would reshape the galaxy forever. The quantum recorder hums to life again. Record start, galactic date 47,293.8. The Council's response to human defiance was predictably short-sighted. They assumed that without access to galactic trade networks, Earth would quickly collapse into isolation and eventually beg for readmission on the Council's terms. My hands tremble slightly as I access the restricted archives. They were wrong, so catastrophically wrong. The first sign came when the Mercathi trade cartels reported unusual activity along their supposedly secret routes. Ships were disappearing, not destroyed, simply vanishing without trace. The Drachnid border patrols encountered phantom energy signatures that their sensors couldn't properly track. The Zentari research outposts began detecting unauthorized quantum scans of their facilities. The humans were already out there, I narrate, my voice tight with remembered tension. Not just surviving isolation, but thriving, learning, spreading. And we never saw them coming. Supreme Counselor Talara refused to acknowledge the mounting evidence. "Primitive species cannot master quantum cloaking," she declared during an emergency session. "Their ships cannot possibly breach our detection grids. These reports are clearly exaggerations." Then came the Perseus incident. The holographic display shows the Mercati's most secure research facility, built into an asteroid at the edge of their territory, home to their most advanced weapons development programs, protected by defenses that had repelled the Drachnid Imperium's best efforts at infiltration. The facility's quantum signature simply disappeared. I recall watching the archived footage. No explosion, no debris. The entire asteroid vanished, along with 3 decades of weapons research. The Mercathi's furious accusations flew across the council chamber. The Drachnid Imperium must have finally succeeded in penetrating their defenses. The Zentari must have developed new technology. Everyone blamed everyone else. Until the message arrived. To the Galactic Council, Admiral Porter's voice fills my observation room, just as it filled the council chamber that day. "We have confirmed that the Mercathi Perseus facility was being used to develop bioweapons intended for deployment against Earth. The facility has been relocated to a secure location. Its research data has been analyzed and archived. Its weapons have been neutralized." The stunned silence that followed still echoes in my memory. "This serves as a demonstration," she continued, her tone deadly calm. "We can reach any target anywhere in council space. We can bypass any defense. We can neutralize any threat. This is not a boast, it is simply fact." I remember Supreme Counselor Talara's scales turning pale, her bioluminescence flickering with shock. "Impossible," she whispered. "They cannot have this level of technology. They cannot." But they did, and they were just getting started. The next 3 months shattered every assumption the Council had about human capabilities. Their ships appeared and disappeared at will throughout Council space. They intercepted coded transmissions we had thought unbreakable. They accessed restricted databases with embarrassing ease. Looking back, I speak to my recorder, we should have recognized the pattern. They weren't attacking, weren't destroying, they were systematically exposing every plot, every scheme, every secret plan the Council species had been developing against Earth. The Drachnid's hidden fleet assembly yards, the Zentari's prohibited genetic warfare labs, the Mercathi's network of slave worlds, one by one, humanity revealed them all. But the Council, in their infinite wisdom, still couldn't accept the truth. couldn't accept that a primitive species had not only caught up to them but had surpassed them in many ways. If they can reach these facilities, Lord Blackscale argued in a closed council session, they can destroy them. The fact that they haven't proves they're still weak, still unwilling to take necessary action. The recording shows Supreme Counselor Talera nodding in agreement. Precisely, they play these games of espionage because they lack the strength for real confrontation. The time has come to show them the consequences of defying the council. I paused the playback, my four hands clenching in remembered frustration. I tried one last time to warn them, to make them understand what they were dealing with. The archived footage shows me standing before the council, my academic credentials displayed behind me. The humans are not showing weakness, I argued. They're showing restraint. Every incursion into our space, every infiltration of our facilities, they're warnings. They're giving us the chance to back down. They're primitive apes playing with stolen technology. Supreme Counselor Talera dismissed me again, and they will learn their place. The council voted overwhelmingly to authorize military action. A combined fleet drawing ships from all major council species would pacify the Sol system and establish direct control over Earth. I remember watching the fleet assemble. 500,000 ships. The largest military force ever gathered in council history. Supreme Counselor Talera personally broadcast their departure, her voice filled with smug satisfaction. Let humanity witness true power, she declared. Let them learn the price of defiance. The fleet never reached Earth. Halfway to the Sol system, every ship simultaneously lost power. Engines, weapons, life support, everything just stopped. In the darkness of dead ships, millions of crew members watched their view screens come to life with a single message. Admiral Porter's face appeared on every screen. She wasn't wearing her uniform anymore. Instead, she wore simple civilian clothes, her expression more disappointed than angry. We gave you every chance, she said quietly. Every opportunity to choose cooperation over domination, peace over conflict. But you couldn't let go of your preconceptions, couldn't accept that humans might be your equals or even your superiors in some ways. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Your ships will regain power in 1 hour. That's enough time for life support to hold, but not enough time to prevent your trajectory from carrying you back into council space. Consider this your final warning. Before the transmission ended, she added one last thing. Your weapons technology is now centuries behind ours. Your defenses are meaningless against our capabilities, and our patience is officially exhausted. End record, I whispered to my quantum recorder. The images fade, leaving me alone with the weight of history. Tomorrow, I'll document how the council finally, tragically, pushed humanity past their breaking point. But tonight I remember Porter's words. Remember the moment when the galaxy's most powerful civilization discovered that power is relative. That patience should never be mistaken for weakness. And that some warnings should be heeded before it's too late. Record start, galactic date 47,293.9. My voice sounds hollow, even to my own ears. Today I document the moment everything changed, the day humanity's patience finally, irrevocably snapped. The council, embarrassed by the fleet's humiliation, sought to save face. But rather than accept humanity's superiority in direct confrontation, they chose a different path, a coward's path. Supreme Counselor Talera authorized what she called a precision intervention. I narrate, pulling up the classified footage. The target was New Haven, humanity's first extrasolar colony. Population 50,000 civilians, researchers, families, children. The Drachnid Imperium provided the strike force. The Mercathi supplied the weapons. The Zentari contributed their stealth technology. They believed that by combining their most advanced systems, they could bypass human defenses. They succeeded. Partly. The recording shows the strike force emerging from stealth near New Haven. 30 ships, small enough to slip through standard patrol patterns. Their weapons were already charged, targeting the colony's environmental domes. The attack lasted exactly 27 seconds. I continue, my scales rippling with remembered horror. 27 seconds that sealed the fate of the council, though we didn't know it then. The colony's shields held against the first barrage, but the concentrated fire eventually broke through. 3 environmental domes cracked. Emergency force fields snapped into place, but not quickly enough. 843 humans died in those 27 seconds. The strike force vanished back into stealth, believing they had struck a decisive blow, believing they had taught humanity a lesson about defying the Council. They were wrong. The response began exactly 3 minutes after the attack. My hands tremble as I access the restricted records. Simultaneous events across Council space, coordinated with a precision that we had thought impossible. The quantum recorder captures the footage of what happened next. In the Drachnid capital system, their mighty defense fleet simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, their ships literally vanished between one sensor sweep and the next. In Mercathi space, every weapons facility, every military installation, every defense platform went dark simultaneously. The Zentari found their most secure networks exposed, their secrets laid bare for the galaxy to see. But that was just the beginning. To the Galactic Council, Admiral Porter's transmission overrode every communication channel in Council space. 843 civilians. 843 lives ended because you couldn't accept your own obsolescence. Because you chose pride over peace. Domination over cooperation. The recording shows her standing on what was clearly a ship's bridge, but like nothing the Council had ever seen. Behind her, holographic displays showed real-time views of every major Council world. We tried diplomacy. We tried warnings. We tried demonstrations of our capabilities without causing permanent harm. Now we show you what happens when humanity stops holding back. She nodded to someone off-screen. Your combined fleet that retreated from Earth? Check their positions. Panic erupted across Council space as military commanders tried to contact their ships. 500,000 vessels, the pride of their combined military might, had vanished without trace. Your ships are safe, Porter continued, her voice carrying an edge that made my scales crawl. They're currently in orbit around Earth. Crew unharmed but thoroughly contained. We brought them here because we want them to have front row seats for what happens next. She pressed a control on her command chair. Right now, human ships are decloaking throughout Council space. We are everywhere. We have always been everywhere. While you played at espionage and military posturing, we were mapping every centimeter of your territory, analyzing every weakness, preparing for the possibility that you would force our hand. The footage splits to show multiple views. Council leaders watched in horror as human vessels appeared in their most secure systems. Ships of impossible size bristling with weapons beyond their comprehension. But Admiral Supreme Counselor Talara's voice shook as she responded, "Surely we can negotiate. The attack on your colony was unsanctioned, a rogue element." "Save your lies," Porter cut her off. "We have the Council records, the authorization codes, the operation plans. Every single being involved in planning and executing the attack has already been transported to holding cells on our ships." She leaned forward, her eyes hard. "Here's what happens now. Every Council world will stand down their military forces immediately. Every hidden weapon, every cloaked ship, every secret installation will be declared and surrendered. You have 1 hour." Or what Lord Blackscale demanded, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Porter's smile was colder than deep space. "Or we demonstrate our full capabilities, the technology we've been holding in reserve, the weapons we've developed but chosen not to use. 1 hour to comply. Then we stop being nice." They didn't believe her. I tell my recorder. Even then, even after everything they had seen, they couldn't accept the truth. Couldn't believe that humanity had advanced so far beyond them. The Council's response was to order all remaining military forces to attack the human ships. Every weapon they had left. Every ship still under their control. One last, desperate attempt to prove their supremacy. The battle, if you could call it that, lasted less than 5 minutes. Human ships didn't dodge the attacks, didn't raise shields, simply allowed the Council's most powerful weapons to strike them directly. The energy weapons passed through them as if they weren't there. Physical projectiles emerged on the other side of their hulls without leaving a mark. Phase shift technology, I explained to my recorder. Their entire ships could partially exit our dimension at will. Nothing in Council space could touch them. Nothing could stop them. Then the humans demonstrated their own weapons. They didn't target military installations, didn't fire on civilian populations. Instead, with surgical precision, they eliminated the seats of power. Government buildings, military command centers, the private estates of those who had ordered the attack on New Haven. The quantum recorder captures the archived footage. Buildings vanishing into thin air, transported to who knows where. Command bunkers buried kilometers underground, suddenly exposed to vacuum as the rock around them ceased to exist. Defense shields failing as the generators powering them simply disappeared. In 5 minutes, the Council's power structure was gutted. Their military command was decapitated. Their ability to offer organized resistance was eliminated. Admiral Porter's final transmission was broadcast to every world, every ship, every communications device in Council space. The Council's authority ends today, she declared. Earth will oversee the transition to a new galactic government, one based on cooperation and mutual respect, not domination and force. Those who work with us will be treated fairly. Those who resist. She let the silence stretch meaningfully. Well, we've demonstrated what resistance will earn you. Choose wisely. End record. I shut off the quantum recorder, my 4 hands shaking as I pull up the final images. The Council chambers, now empty and dark. The mighty combined fleet, still in orbit around Earth, its crews watching helplessly as their civilization was transformed. Humanity, stepping into their role not as conquerors, but as reluctant guardians, determined to build something better than what they had torn down. They had never wanted war, never wanted to rule. But when pushed too far, when their patience finally ran out, they proved that technological superiority wasn't their greatest strength. Their greatest strength was their restraint, and the galaxy learned far too late that such restraint should never be taken for granted. Final record, galactic date 47,293.10. I gaze out at Earth one last time through my observation window. The reconstruction period began immediately after the surrender, but it wasn't what anyone expected. The humans, surprising everyone yet again, didn't install themselves as the new council, didn't seek revenge, didn't demand reparations. Instead, they did something far more radical. They gave everyone a voice. The Galactic Assembly. I speak into my recorder, watching ships of all species moving peacefully through space below. One world, one vote. No special privileges, no dominant species. Even the youngest civilizations have equal say in galactic affairs. The Quantum Archive displays footage from the first assembly session. Admiral Porter, now retired from military service, stood before representatives from every known species, even those the Council had deemed too primitive to participate. We could rule you, she said simply. We could dominate you the way the Council did. We have the power. But that's not who we are. That's not what humanity stands for. The changes came swiftly after that. Trade routes open to all. Technology shared freely, with built-in safeguards that even humans themselves couldn't override. A new era of cooperation and growth. The former Council species struggled at first. I narrate, remembering those turbulent days. The Drachnid Imperium nearly collapsed when their slave worlds were freed. The Mercathi economy stumbled without their monopolies. The Zentari scientific dominance evaporated when their secret research was shared with all. But they adapted. They had to. Because the humans made it clear: try to rebuild the old power structures, attempt to dominate others again, and face consequences far worse than military defeat. The recording shows the transformation. Former enemies working together on joint projects. Species that had been bitter rivals for millennia now sharing resources and knowledge. A galaxy learning slowly but surely that cooperation brings greater rewards than conquest. Supreme Counselor Talera works as a teacher, now I note with a touch of irony, instructing young diplomats about the dangers of pride and prejudice. Lord Blackscale leads a cultural exchange program. Even the Zentari have redirected their research toward beneficial technologies for all species. My 4 hands move across the control panel one last time, bringing up the final statistics. Trade volume up 300%. Scientific breakthroughs occurring at 5 times the previous rate. Conflict between species down by 89%. And the humans, I can't keep the wonder from my voice. They watch. They guide when asked. They step in only when absolutely necessary. Their ships still patrol Council space, their technology still far beyond what most species can comprehend. But they've never once abused that power. The quantum recorder captures my sigh. This will be my final report on species 7249. I've spent 15 years studying them, from first contact through the fall of the Council and into this new era. And I think I finally understand what we got wrong from the very beginning. The observation window fills with the image of Earth, still beautiful, still deceptively peaceful. We thought their kindness was weakness. Their patience was primitive restraint. Their willingness to talk rather than fight was proof of their inferiority. We were so convinced of our own superiority that we couldn't recognize what was right in front of us. A human ship phases into view, its hull gleaming with technology that still seems like magic to most species. It acknowledges my presence with a brief signal flash, then continues its patrol. They weren't primitive. They were principled. They weren't weak. They were giving us every chance to be better. And when we failed those chances, when we finally pushed them too far, they didn't just defeat us. They saved us. From others, yes, but mostly from ourselves. I begin the shutdown sequence for my observation post. After 15 years, it's time to go home. Time to share what I've learned with my own people. The humans have a saying: I speak my final words into the recorder. Something Admiral Porter quoted in that first assembly session. The true measure of power isn't in how much damage you can do, but in how much good you choose to do instead. The quantum recorder clicks off for the last time. I take one final look at Earth before turning away. They were never the primitive species we thought they were. They were what we could have been, should have been, all along. And thanks to their peculiar mix of power and principle, of capability and compassion, the galaxy is finally becoming what it always should have been. A place where no species needs to prove their superiority, where patience is recognized as strength, and where the greatest power lies not in dominance, but in the choice to be better than what came before. End final record.